Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us on this beautiful day in America. Thank you so much for spending part of your day or evening with us. We always appreciate it. Just when you thought the January 6th sham couldn't get any worse, folks, it gets worse. Congressional investigators collected a stunning 30 million phone lines of phone data, mapping connections between conservatives and the Trump White House in the name of investigating the January 6th Capitol breach. That's right, folks. We're just finding out this week that the FBI, not under Kash Patel, of course, but the FBI under Christopher Wray was spying on 30 million phone lines, now 30 million phone line connections between people who were connected with Trump or people around Trump. I probably am connected in there somehow, some way. Now, the phone records, the collection was revealed to the FBI, that was read by Chris Wray, in late 2023 by none other than Adam Kinzinger. You remember Adam Kinzinger? The catch was offered to the Bureau on the eve of the 2024 election as evidence without requiring a warrant, according to an FBI document memorializing the offer that was reviewed by Just the News. The memo says that Adam Kinzinger told the FBI that the phone data had been collected by then former Democrat Rep. Denver Ringelman, an ex-Republican, who was a staffer on the Capitol Hill riot committee, later helped Hunter Biden's legal team in its effort to cast doubts on the laptop belonging to Joe Biden's son, the Russia collusion, the Russia laptop. It's Russian disinformation. So we're now finding out 30 million phone lines tapped, folks, spied on. In just a few moments, we're going to be talking to my good friend and friend of the Great America Show, Russ Tice, former senior NSA intel analyst, to get his take on this and his take on just how much deeper this corruption runs, just how much deeper their surveillance state runs, just how much more abuse we're getting out of the Patriot Act. Warrantless phone records. Now, this is in, of course, addition to the 8+ members of Congress and the Senate whose phone lines were surveilled under Jack Smith. It's this whole web of corruption, folks, that's finally starting to be untangled. Now, we found out that in addition to those 8, Ted Cruz's lines were also attempted to be tapped. A subpoena was served to AT&T, to which AT&T did not comply with the subpoena. We're working on getting some more information on that, but we're just finding out about that this week to figure out if that was ever litigated in court, because we've never heard about that as well. So the corruption, folks, only continues to get worse as we find out now that 30 million phone lines were entangled in the Marxist Dems and Rhinos January 6th sham committee. So like I said, we're going to take that up with former senior NSA intel analyst Russ Tice in just a few moments, but I want to get to some news of the day. President Trump this afternoon having a luncheon out on his new rose garden before the weather starts to get a little bit more chilly, and he won't be able to use it as freely as he'd like. By the way, that new expansion has happened on the White House, and it's got the Democrats going absolutely berserk. They're going nuts. Donald Trump is ripping down the White House 120 years old. God forbid he renovates the place and pays for it himself. As if the White House never went through any renovations, right? As if the White House was never fixed up. I mean, these people are absolutely insane. President Trump, in that luncheon this afternoon, calling on the Democrats to stop the madness, open up the government, and end this nonsense once and for all.
Today, I'm calling on every Senate Democrat to stop the madness, to let our country get back in the greatest moment in the history of our country in terms of wealth, in terms of job creation, and in terms of investment coming in. These guys go on strike. It's really a shame. So I'm asking them to be smart. It's not working. They're getting killed in the polls. The public understands what they're doing. They're doing the wrong thing.
Now, all of this in addition, folks, as President Trump's administration continues to make America great again, President Trump is set to shatter deportation records by the end of 2025 More than 2 million illegals already left the country so far. 1.6 million reportedly self-deported. More than 400,000 deported by DHS. DHS is saying they expect another 600,000 to be deported before the end of the year, bringing it to just over 2.5 million on the year. So I think that's a great number. I think they can do better and they will do better. But with what we've seen the last 4 years, any number of deportations, I'm being facetious, of course, is great because we've had plus numbers for the last 4 years of illegals coming into this country. Now, President Trump also at that luncheon this afternoon addressed a big issue, and it's air travel. The holiday season is coming up. We're about a month out from Thanksgiving. The FAA is all types of screwed up. For any of you folks who travel, I travel a lot, more than I should be and more than I want to be. I can't tell you the last time I was on a flight into New York that wasn't delayed because of some sort of air traffic control flow program, because of shortage of staffing. I mean, this is scary stuff, folks. As a pilot, a commercial pilot myself, it scares the heck out of me to know that the Democrats and the government is playing games with one of the most critical things that we do in our daily lives, flying air travel, which is statistically safer than driving a car, accident-wise. But the Democrats are playing games. President Trump addressed that earlier this afternoon.
We've already seen the impacts of the dangerous game that they're playing. Democrats are causing delays in our air traffic control system. So important. We wouldn't have had, this Pete Buttigieg, he spent billions of dollars on fixing the air traffic control that used copper wire going into glass wire. Any union electrician here or any non-union electrician would say you can't hook copper into glass. It doesn't work. They spent billions of dollars. They turned on the system, and it was stone cold blank. We're getting a brand new system. We have bids out now. We have 3 great companies bidding. And I want one bid. Sean Duffy's doing terrifically. I want one bid. I want just bid, and they're responsible for everything. Not where they had like 1,000 contractors. Every contractor, they were all running around. In the end, if one of them does a bad job, we want to be able to blame somebody, and it's going to be one of the very big companies because there's a lot of interest in it. So the air traffic control system is going to be rebuilt. Over 1 million federal workers right now, as you know, are going unpaid. That's the Democrats' fault. And children, tourists unable to visit the museums in Washington, D.C., that we now have beautiful, safe streets, but we don't have the museums open. We should probably just open them. But we are doing things that nobody's ever done, nobody's ever seen. So all of this and the pain that the Democrats have caused during this reckless and completely unnecessary affair, and you could call it the Schumer shutdown or the Democrat shutdown, you can call it whatever you want. And
scary stuff, folks. Scary stuff. The Democrats are playing games with the lives of every single American. It's not just the paycheck. It's the fact of getting on an airplane and not having to worry about any issues happening in the air because of a depleted and obsolete air traffic control system. Very, very scary stuff. We're going to take a quick break here, folks. On the other side of this quick break, we're going to be joined by Russ Tice, former senior NSA intel analyst and whistleblower. We're going to get his take on the latest 30 million phone lines surveilled. We're going to get his take on Tulsi Gabbard and the work she's doing, and John Ratcliffe having some rough days. We're going to get his take on that. Folks, if you're joining us on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. On YouTube especially, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Turn on those updates so you know every time we're going live. We're coming right back on The Great America Show, folks. Please stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7. the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Thanks, everybody, for staying with us here on the Great America Show. We always appreciate you joining us. Like I said, if you're joining us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow Rumble. Please do the same if you're joining us on audio. We appreciate you guys, the OGs, joining us. You guys are the originals, so we appreciate it. Now, as promised, our guest today is former senior NSA Intel analyst and whistleblower, the great Russ Tice. Russ, it's been a while, so it's a delight to have you back. I want to start with first a big story out this week that January 6th investigators seized 30 million phone lines and records to hunt Trump allies. Now, the story says, now this is in addition, Russ, to the 8 senators and members of Congress that we find out that Jack Smith was surveilling. But the story from the Daily Caller goes on to say congressional investigators collected tens of millions of phone records in an effort to map connections between conservatives and the Trump White House as part of the Democrat-led January 6th investigation, according to FBI memos obtained by our friend John Solomon at Just the News. The memo states that the trove revealed the FBI by former ex-congressman, they call him a Republican, but he's not really a Republican, Adam Kinzinger, contained roughly 30 million lines of phone data without a warrant, Russ. Kinzinger told the Bureau that the records have been compiled by former GOP rep Denver Ringelman, senior advisor to the January 6th panel, who has since worked for Hunter Biden's legal team, according to the outlet. So a lot of the same names there, Russ, but 30 million lines of communication with no warrant?
Now think about that. And this was the timeline is very interesting here. When was that information originally obtained, and from who? Was it obtained from the phone companies themselves, which I think under the revamped Patriot Act, they allowed phone companies to start keeping them for, I think, either 6 months to a year. Just the metadata. Remember, the metadata is just the information of when the call was made, what phone number, to who, from one, to what number, how long, and all that originally is for billing information, so that the phone company knows how much to charge the people that are using the phones. So that information is the metadata. That the names of the people on the phone numbers are not supposed to be collected by the database, but of course the phone company has that information because they got to know who to send the bill to, of course. But when we would do this at the NSA, this sort of thing, you send out, you'd look at all this. I'd say we're doing this overseas. You might get 30 million contacts for an area or something that you're looking for. Then you take all that information and then you put it through filters, and you look for things that are said, words that you're looking for. If you're looking for a terrorist and you're looking for something like jihad or that sort of thing, these are the other things you're looking for are code words that terrorists know to use. Weddings used to be one. So you filter all that information. You look for certain numbers you have, then you look for contacts and numbers that are associated with that number. And then from there, you get the word for word. And then you start having humans put their earphones on to listen literally to what these people are saying.
So in other words, you're saying they take the metadata, they sift through the metadata, they get the people they want, and then they have their conversations after that inside of that metadata. Is that correct?
Well, with NSA, they collect everything. They would collect the metadata and they collect the word for word also. So, but try to think of the metadata as when the old days when you used to go to the library and you get the card catalog. Yeah. So you're looking for a subject you're writing a thesis in high school on, I don't know, stock car races where
it's the who, when, I'm going back to like third grade vocabulary. Who, when, why, when, how, just their name, the timestamp on it, and wherever they're calling from. But you're telling me they're able to go now further into these conversations. What were they looking for on 30 million Americans, folks? This is 30 million Americans. It's larger than the entire state of New York, including New York City. That's a lot of people, Russ.
Well, remember, these are they could be multiple calls. They could be the same guy making 20 calls in that list. So it's not necessarily 30 million Americans, but it's going to be a boatload of Americans that are involved in this. So instead of the way we're looking for bad guys or terrorists, and you're using a word like jihad, say I use a word like Trump, or some of the names of President Trump's children, or some of his business associates, or Roger Stone, who is one of your, folks that we see about every week with talking to you. So you plug in all those words, and there's other things that you filter, numbers that and then you run, and then once you identify those, then you identify numbers that are calling those. So you might get Roger Stone may call the White House somebody, or someone's connected with the White House. Boom, you got Roger Stone. Then from Roger Stone, you find out who's talking to Roger Stone. Oh, gee, John, I assume you talked to Mr. Stone. Guess what? You're on that list, buddy. So that's how you find out who the people are. In this case, I'm pretty sure the target was President Trump. So once you get all that information, you get all these phone numbers, you know where they went. Now, there's a way to do this. It's called traffic analysis, where you don't have the contacts because they're encrypted. And some of our bad guys, especially nation states, they know, like the Russian military, they know to encrypt their stuff, but then you do a traffic analysis.
Yeah, but I don't think these were bad guys. I think these were ordinary Americans who were supporting President Trump. But according to our Justice Department, our intel agencies, they were domestic terrorists. So it's not like we're dealing with, my opinion, at least for the vast majority of them. Now, I'm sure there can be some funneled in there, of course, like anything. But they're diluted by, I think, just ordinary Americans who went to January 6th, who supported President Trump. I mean, all the things you listed above, Russ, are me. I speak to, for example, Roger Stone. At the time of January 6th, I was talking with a lot of Trump people. I was talking with people inside the administration who were, 3-4 ranks away from President Trump, texting, calling, this and that. So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind I was probably implicated in some of those things, but the vast majority of these people were just regular people, Russ, like you and I, getting their data all snatched up for whatever reason. Now, congressional members tell us the Patriot Act is a must, FISA 702 must. But how are we supposed to trust these people when time and time again they just poke us in the eyes and say, F you, we're going to do what we want anyway?
Well, of course, you can't trust them. Over and over, they lie, and they lie again. And if you catch them at a certain point and breach a wall, they retreat to the next line of defense, and then the next line and the next line. Right. And I'll guarantee you, John, that this is more than just metadata. They're lying once again. They use this information. And remember, an enemy is whoever I declare an enemy is. If I declare J6ers to be enemies, then you're an enemy. Sure. As opposed to a terrorist organization, Al Qaeda or whoever oversees.
Venezuelan drug lords pouring drugs into our country.
Right. So if the data is the data, and how you use it, and who's declared the enemy, the data is filtered. However, you basically use that information and do the analysis that I'm saying. But once again, if the FBI is finding this out later in the fact, there's certainly no way that Congress had the capability to do this kind of analysis. And then why would they just need so John talked to Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone talked to a person that was working with President Trump, and that person is very close to President Trump. So they got you like 3 or 4 layers out. But who cares? What are they going to do with that, John? What they need is word for word after that. That is just the card catalog. Now I've gone through the card catalog and I've identified, I'm going to say like a library book. And one of those library books is John Fawcett. The next library book is Roger Stone. The next library book up is the White House person. And then the next book up is the would-be king, supposedly President Trump. So once you have that and you have all the different people, then you go to get the word for word that NSA has lied repeatedly that they don't get, which they lie. I know starting in December of 2013 is when NSA opened up that facility in Bluffdale, Utah to collect everything word for word. Remember, I used that analogy, even the little two girls that are talking about how cute Johnny is in junior high school. Even that kind of nonsense that no one cares about, everything. Even Admiral Rogers came out and said, what don't you believe? What don't you understand about the word everything? Everything is word for word included, and not in phone conversations, in your texts, in your emails, everything.
So let me ask you this, Russ, real quick. Why is it that we're hearing about this from John Solomon, who, by the way, does terrific job, one of the greatest investigative journalists to ever walk this earth? Why is it that we have to hear from John Solomon and not from our FBI director, not from our CIA director, not from our director of the NSA, or so on and so forth? Why are we hearing from it from the news and not our government saying, hey, by the way, the Biden administration was doing X, Y, and Z, or whatever the story may be? Why are we not hearing it from them?
Well, for what I'm led to believe is that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, this whole special file or database was hidden from back even when Ray was in there, from your average FBI officer, and then it was basically put into the background and hidden from our current director, Mr. Patel. Kash Patel. So and Director Bongino, or Deputy Director Bongino.
So how does John Solomon find it?
Pardon?
So how did John Solomon find it?
Well, whistleblower. This all comes down to whistleblowers. You can have all the IGs you want, and you can have all the committees for looking into violations that are normally always compromised, because quite often all those IGs and those committees, their own security clearances is contingent on the agencies that they're supposed to be monitoring. So this would have to come from a whistleblower that Mr. Solomon or of course Mr. Grassley, or Senator Grassley, is sort of known as the godfather of whistleblowing. So hasn't helped people like me so much, but because the intel community is still exempt from all the whistleblower laws. So that no one wants to bring that up. But so someone has probably come through as a whistleblower, probably the FBI, I'm assuming, because remember, those guys are trying to keep their jobs, to say, hey, I know about this secret database. And remember the time. So it came from Congress first, then supposedly to the FBI, which is very interesting. And there's no way Congress or the FBI has the capability to sift through that information. There's only one agency that can do it. That's NSA. And we need to find out the connection from Congress, from that J6 committee, to NSA, and the telecommunication companies that were involved as well.
Yeah. So there's no doubt, Russ, they were running a cabal at the highest level. And they've gotten caught. And I think now we're going to start to see the indictments start to flow. And we see the biggest one perhaps yet, John Bolton, raided his house just about a month ago, got files out there. This man was keeping war plans, Russ. The guy had stolen war plans from whatever security agency he'd stolen them from. Different sorts of he had folders labeled Trump this, Trump that. First of all, what is John Bolton doing stealing these documents? Number one. Number two, why are people not taking this more serious than it is, Russ? You were, given some of the harshest penalties possible, taking pensions and losing jobs, and labeled a crazy man for coming out and blowing the whistle on something that we're witnessing happening right in front of our eyes till this very day. Yet people are on the left are looking at John Bolton as this hero.
Bolton is he's always been known as a warmonger. I call him a war pig, but like the Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath song. But it would suggest that he wrote a book, right, and made a couple $1 million on it. So he kept notes. By the way, if you're in a classified briefing and you take notes, and I would do this periodically, but the notes you submit to be put into your safe, and they're classified. Even if I write something on a napkin, it becomes the napkin is now classified. If I write, weapons capabilities or enemy capabilities against or counter capabilities or now, was he selling that information? So some people, they keep that information to sell for profit. I don't know that he did that, but
he's charged with espionage.
Well, the Espionage Act is a very that's something they were going to charge me with, by the way. And I had 0 classified documents in my home, but I certainly have evidence. I believe that my home was broken into several times by the FBI. Another place where I had stayed, I believe, was broken into. I believe my parents' home was broken into at least twice when they were at church, because my father was retired, my mother didn't work. The only time they could have gotten into my parents' home was when they were at church. And just so happened, because there was an old locking system on their home, it was an older home, that I guess they didn't have the nouveau whatever way to get in. They just drilled a hole right through the lock to break open the lock. They did that twice at my parents' home. Now, am I stupid enough to keep classified documents in my home or my parents' home? Of course not. I don't have any classified documents. The only one time I ever took classified documents home, I was working with the Navy. It was a very highly classified system, and it accidentally ended up on my briefcase because I was working with the Naval War College to get my graduate degree from there. And as soon as I figured it out the next day, I immediately contacted security. I went in, I turned it in, I wrote up my own security report that and then talked to security. They said, okay, we don't think it was compromised. You sat it in your briefcase by your desk at your home and never went anywhere. But I had a little ding put on my report because that was a security violation.
And you self-admitted to it.
I turned myself in. I did it. I mean, it was an accident, and it was a highly classified naval SAP program.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing you do even if you accidentally find out that you've done something. The only time I've ever had an issue with that, and it accidentally ended up in my briefcase. I probably shouldn't have had my homework for the Naval Academy, the Naval War College, in with SAP stuff I was working in the office. But it ended up there, my fault. But Bolton apparently just willy-nilly put documents in his briefcase, and off he went and took them home. And I guess he wanted to use them for his book, or I don't know, maybe to impress people, or maybe to put in so that he knew something special to show someone.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Russ, it's funny. You got guys like Bolton who, when Julian Assange came out and Edward Snowden came out and blew the whistle on some of the same things that you blew the whistle on, John Bolton came up to the line of calling for their death. I mean, these people should be thrown in jail for the rest of their lives. Take a listen.
gets to the United States, he'll get due process here. And I hope he gets at least 176 years in jail for what he did. I'm not bothered by the death penalty in this country, and I think crimes like espionage that harm the security and the safety of innocent American civilians deserves the strictest punishment. View is that Snowden committed treason. He ought to be convicted of that, and then he ought to swing from a tall oak tree. Well, he should be prosecuted, and if he's found guilty, he should be punished to the fullest extent possible.
And what is that?
Death.
You think he should be killed?
Yes.
John Bolton calling for the death of numerous people who, in my opinion, aren't bad people. I don't think Julian Assange is a bad person. I don't think Edward Snowden is a bad person for simply coming out. You know, Bolton wants to talk about being a traitor or this or that. But what about when it's the shoes on the other foot, Russ? What about when our government is betraying us? What about when our government is trading us? I don't know any time we signed up to be surveilled. We have the right to live a life without being surveilled at every single moment for doing absolutely nothing wrong. What about looking at that aspect of it?
What's interesting about the Espionage Act is when you're prosecuted for it, you cannot put up a defense as to why you may have said something that is classified, even if it's a total violation of the law and the Constitution. You're not allowed to bring that up in court in your defense. They'll just say, you had a classified document or you said something classified, and you say, yes, but it was because of illegal, and they'll shut you up and say, shut up. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to defend yourself. What Snowden came out with, probably, you know, the difference between me and Snowden, well, first of all, I think he gave up too much. And I think there was a reason for that, and that we'd have to go into a long discussion on that. But he came out with the document, the NSA's own documentation that this was going on. When I came out and said it all, 9 years before Snowden, it's like they lied and they said they weren't doing it, of course, and they said that I was crazy. How their argument was, oh my gosh, we could never do such a thing. And this guy's crazy. He's off the he's just lost it, and we have to fire him, by the way, because he's crazy. So that's the difference. They hate Snowden because he had their own documentations as proof, and I just had my own words.
Yeah, and they can call you crazy because you don't have the documentation, and they can call him a traitor. So it doesn't matter what you have or what you don't have, Russ, because somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to ruin your life. They ruined your life. They ruined his life. I mean, they ruined Assange's life. These guys were on the run still on the run to this day, and simply for calling out the government. And it's not the way America should be. It's not the way that I think the founders created this country, but we've gotten far into a time, Russ, where this country is bought and owned by everybody and corrupted from within. Forget about, Russia or China or other people coming to hack us and do corruption. We do it from within to ourselves, to our own people. It's like, I mean, we had a problem when Syria when the leaders of Syria were gassing their people, and they want to talk about civil rights abuses, and they want to talk about civil rights abuses in Iran or other countries throughout the Middle East or in Venezuela or in China. But what about the civil rights abuses happening right here in America? Is that a fair assessment, Russ?
Well, of course it is, and think of some of the discussions we've had in the past. Why would you not put the hammer down on this?
Yeah,
the same reason J. Edgar Hoover was blackmailing presidents way back when. NSA can easily use this information to blackmail any wrongdoing by our congressional representatives, our judges that are in the Supreme Court, FISA court, under the courts, federal courts underneath, or any other court for that matter, and a whole bunch of other people they can blackmail. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover is a drop in the bucket compared to what NSA can do with what they have. And so for some reason, I don't think a whole lot of the representatives that we have on Capitol Hill are saints, that they have a bit of dirt in their background. So I keep saying, why doesn't someone bring in NSA and say, do you have this information? The same thing that was asked to what's his name, when he was at DNI, the Clapper. So, and say, does NSA have this information? In this case, I would say, did NSA give this information, or
let them lie under oath,
involved in giving this information to the J6 committee? And then how much information given, and was word for word information given? And I would let the director of NSA, or I don't even think President Trump has been able to assign another director for NSA. But I would say, if you lie to us, we're going to put you in jail, director, deputy director, whoever you are at NSA. And how much information do you have on American citizens? Are you lying? And I think they are. They have it word for word. Yep. And then deal with that, and then hold these people accountable until you put people in jumpsuits behind bars, eating mush for breakfast. It's going to continue to happen over and over and over again. And like I said, this started out when I blew the whistle on Republicans, on a Republican president.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
The analogy I use, Russ, is these people should never be able to go to the bathroom again and use a toilet bowl that's not made of stainless steel and has a toilet bowl seat without people watching them go to the bathroom. That's the analogy I've been using lately. For the people who aren't well versed with the prison system, they're stainless steel toilets, no toilet bowl seat on them, and I don't even know if you get toilet paper, but the time has got to come. Let's turn to Russ before we wrap up here. Tulsi Gabbard, someone I admire greatly, who I think is doing a terrific job. And I know she's doing a good job because the Daily Beast has an article out that says Gabbard launches her secret goon squad to target Trump's enemies. Your thoughts on the job that Tulsi Gabbard is doing this far, Russ?
Well, remember, I wasn't sure about Miss Gabbard because she really doesn't have an intel background. But then I thought about it. I said, you know what? Maybe the best thing we can have is someone who doesn't have an intel background.
Yes.
Who isn't tainted by the past. And the fact that they came after her as much as they did, then I realized that she was the real thing. And that's when I became a real Tulsi Gabbard fan. And I am to this day. The fact they keep coming at her, the fact that they tried to set her up with that dirty nuclear Iran stuff at the CIA. And you know what I think of the director of the CIA.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
So it's that's when I became a fan. And now she's figured out a way to ferret out the bad apples from the intel barrel. And now they're all upset because she's starting to dig them out and get rid of them. So So hooray for Tulsi Gabbard. I want to carry her banner around because she's doing her job. And my goodness, I give her a big hug if I ever met the woman and say thank you.
Yeah, you know why I think, Russ, she has the obligation to do a good job is because she was wronged just as bad as Donald Trump was. They stole from her in 2016, Hillary Clinton. They robbed her from a fair democratic process. And they tried to ruin her life just as they did to Donald Trump. Now, obviously, she didn't have the money that Donald Trump had. She didn't have the power. She didn't have the fame that Donald Trump had. So she couldn't really defend herself the way that she probably, would have if she did have those resources. But I do think she's doing a terrific job. And I'm assured by a man you mentioned, Roger Stone, who's a very good friend of hers, that she's doing a terrific job. But I've seen instances. You mentioned Director of CIA John Ratcliffe. And there's been some instances. First of all, I got to be honest with you, I've never really trusted him, and I'll tell you why. Back in 2020, when President Trump left office, he had declassified certain documents. One of the biggest ones would be the 2016 Russia, the collusion, whatever you want to call it, documents that Ratcliffe seemingly dragged his feet on, didn't get them out. I've spoken about this many times before, and I'm going to try to get John Solomon on the show this week to talk about it. But the documents were given to John Solomon and then taken back from John Solomon and never given back. It was in regard to Crossfire Hurricane, obviously the Russia collusion hoax and all that. There was other documents like the JFK files that he held back. And I'm sure now he's in on the Epstein files as well. I think he's a deep state operator. But I do have seen issues now over the course of this term, dating back just a month ago, Russ, we've got here from MS, or this is NBC. Tensions rise between Gabbard. This is last month. Rise between Gabbard and CIA chief after her disclosure of an undercover officer's name, according to insiders. The article says Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard blindsided CIA leaders last week when she disclosed the name of an undercover CIA officer on a list of people she stripped of security clearances, multiple current and former intelligence sources say. Now, why would Ratcliffe, if you're stripped of your security clearance, with the exception, a few exceptions, you probably did something wrong. And in this case, you definitely did something wrong. But you got CIA Director John Ratcliffe trying to protect these people who tried to destroy democracy in America? Doesn't make much sense to me, Russ.
Well, apparently this guy was a former CIA officer, so he was no longer working in a covert capacity. Yeah. So, and if he lost his clearance, he's not working anywhere, in the intel community. So he's a past operative, if he was one. And so, okay, now we know that he used to do some spooky stuff for the CIA. Yeah. Big deal. I did a whole lot of spooky stuff in my background. To this day, I'm not allowed to talk about, but yeah, I did spooky stuff. Some of it covertly. So come on, that's nonsense. And of course, Radcliffe set up Tulsi Gabbard, as mentioned, and I just don't think this man is trustworthy. I hope for the day when President Trump realizes this and gives him the boot.
I just saw yesterday, and I don't particularly care for Steve Bannon. I don't really like Steve Bannon, but I saw yesterday on Steve Bannon's show some headlines, Steve Bannon calling for Ratcliffe to step aside and resign from his job because Steve says that Ratcliffe, Steve Witkoff, who's been President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, who's been negotiating a lot of these peace deals and things like that in that region, has been getting briefings 3 times a day from the CIA on different issues throughout the Middle East. And one of the big ones was obviously Israel and Hamas and the ceasefire. Steve Bannon says that multiple times Ratcliffe came to Witkoff in his briefings and lied right to his face, saying Hamas has no intention to negotiate. Hamas doesn't want to negotiate any sort of peace plan. And he's saying that's not exactly the case. I mean, that's a big deal, in my opinion. If that pans out to be true, I'm not sure Steve would be coming out here alleging these things if he didn't have some sort of inside information into the fact that John Ratcliffe has been lying, and we find out he lied about Iran. So if you lied once, Russ, you're probably going to lie again. This is dangerous.
Yeah, more than likely, there's something there. And mentioned Epstein before. I'm quite convinced that Epstein was working for the CIA.
A lot of people are,
and they were blackmailing people with these folks were buggering these little girls, and they were the CIA was using that to blackmail them, and perhaps MI6 and the Mossad, and Lord knows who else. But because he's a former CIA asset, and come on, where did he get hundreds of millions of dollars? It's just would explain how. So. Yeah, I'm 90% sure he was a CIA asset and other intel, and of course Ratcliffe is going to do everything he can to not bring that out, and the other information probably came from a whistleblower, and I think he's as dirty as dirt gets.
And Tulsi's his boss theoretically, right?
Correct. But so remember, I told you about that whole thing about the CIA being the former, basically the head of the intel community, and they've never gotten over the fact that there's now a DCI that's supposed to be their boss, and that's always been an issue ever since.
Would Tulsi have to go to President Trump if she wanted to fire Ratcliffe?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just the level of corruption here. I don't think President Trump should tolerate even one lie because of how many times he was lied to his first term around, and then in the re-election campaign. He's got too many people around him, still to this day, who I don't think have his best interest, based on what I hear from inside his inner circle. So I don't think he should tolerate it. I don't think he should put up with it because we're all living on borrowed time, Russ. These 4 years are going to go real quick. In just a few months, we're already going to be a year in, and that gives them 3 years left. But you really don't do anything the last 6 months of your administration, so that gives you 2.5 years left. So time flies, and I don't think he could, stand to put up with this, which is why I'm so adamant about getting these corrupt scumbags off these streets and getting guys like Bolton behind bars where they belong. Put them through the process they put Donald Trump through for no reason. Russ, it's always a delight to talk to you. You get the last word here.
Remember, you just mentioned the word time. Timing is very important on this case with the J6 committee and all 30 million files and all the machinations of how that all happened. That timeline has to be established. And who else was involved? I'm quite sure NSA was involved. And ultimately, you have to attack the elements of that timeline and hold people accountable. Yep. Mr. President, Mr. Trump, please hold these people accountable so that even after we're all long gone, any future intel people or whoever is in these positions will fear being put in jail if they think about doing these things.
Yeah, they should all go to jail at least for 10 days, 15 days to see what it's like, just as a test. I guarantee none of these pretty boys will be able to last a day, because once people in jail find out what they've done and who they're working for, I hear it's not a smooth sailings, I guess, is probably the most appropriate way to say it, Russ. We all know what happens in jail to people who are bad.
Well, they'd have to be in because they've had access to classified information.
Yeah. Solitary is probably worse than what could happen to them in general population, actually.
Yeah,
so
you can't have them with the general population. You have to segment them away, but they need to be in jail. It's that simple.
Yep. Russ, we'll talk to you soon, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Former senior NSA intel analyst and whistleblower, and great American and great friend of the great Lou Dobbs, and great friend of mine and great friend of the Great America Show, Russ Tice. Russ, we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Always my pleasure, John.
Thanks to Russ Tice, folks, and thank you all for being with us today here on the Great America Show. We'll see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. Have a great night, everybody.